Hey, Soul Family. It's Crystal, Demon Slayer 144. And today I want to talk about Armageddon, the final days. I believe the final days were talked about in Revelations in the Bible. Did you know that we're already in it? That it's already happening? Yep, it's already happening. Right now. There is a major Armageddon spiritual war between quote unquote good and evil on the spiritual dimension. And we have a bit of the reflection of it on the physical dimension. Now, maybe you, but definitely me, growing up, reading the Bible, and looking at movies and reading books, I always thought that the Armageddon was, the final battle of good and evil, where I guess evil's destroyed, but with it, there's just going to be all these, kind of like the destruction of the world. And if I'm understanding correctly, that everybody was gonna die, but the righteous would be raised from the dead by this angel, Gabriel or someone, and only the righteous would be saved. And I guess, they would rise up to heaven, and evildoers who didn't make the cut would stay on earth, that would be ultimately destroyed. That's how I understood it. What I've come to find out is that Armageddon is actually the balancing of energies of what we call, of what we perceive as good and evil. It's the divine balance, the divine justice. And I know that sounds weird, because it sounded weird to me, because I'm like, well, if this is supposed to be a battle between good and evil, then one of those gangs are supposed to win. Like, I guess the Antichrist is representing the demons and Satan and the evil team. And then the second coming of Jesus and the angels are representing the team of the good. And then they have this huge battle. And then at some point, then it's just a battle between Jesus and Satan. Something like that. Something like that. I just don't believe that. I don't believe it. I believe that the balancing of the energies that is happening right now, the rising of the frequencies of the universe, but I'll say the world, but it's really going through the whole universe, but the world, the rising of vibrational frequencies are causing people to seek that balance within themselves, if they're able to. Now, some people are heavily invested in how things are. And how things are has been out of balance for thousands of years. Because the things that a lot of people consider as evil, I'll just use myself as an example. The genocidal wars and the pollution of the earth and these secret cabals, these secret societies that that partner with creatures that are not fully human, that actually feed on us like food, like people feed on cattle, and their connection and other humans' connections, families, that go back centuries, whether it be, through family names, the Rothschilds come to mind, or whether it's through royalty, these different quote unquote royal lineages that go back that I have studied and found have actually connected and work with these basically non-human creatures that actually walk the earth, that can shapeshift. Some people call them reptilians. That have, and these families and these creatures who have agreed to work with demonic forces that are in other dimensions that people call archons, that feed off of our negative emotions, anger, hate, greed, lust, fear, anxiety, all the above. So these entities that are connected, these people that are connected to the creatures and connected to the demons, have also connected to other people in many other ways to influence them so that they can use their creative power, because the only beings that have the creative power to manifest something out of nothing, basically, are humans. The creatures can't do it, and the archons definitely can't do it because they don't have souls. So they manipulate humans, us, who agree to do whatever these creatures and these demons want done. It could be creating, billion-dollar corporations that ravage villages and countries of their natural resources, and that are, and secret societies that kidnap children and sacrifice actual people. Countries that create genocidal war, because all this feeds the creatures and the demons. And for this agreement to serve the creatures and demons in this way, the creatures and the demons say, you know what, I will tell you, because they'll just connect them into their other secret societies or organizations or powerful people. I will ensure that you get your desire, whether that be money, whether it be whatever you need to satisfy your sexual desire, and don't care even if it includes children or animals. So what? Maybe you like murder. Maybe we'll set up a hunt for you. Or maybe, you just want to live, you want to have this ultimate power to be like a dictator or an oligarch or a president. We will create that for you. We will give that to you if you use your creative power to make whatever it is we need to happen. That has happened. That those agreements and those activities have happened for such a long time. I mean, even when supposedly Jesus came to tell people, look, you know, the power of the Most High is within you. You don't need to go outside of yourself to connect directly with what you consider as God or the source or the divine. You don't have to do that. And allegedly, he told his disciples the same thing. Not only did he say, don't create any hierarchies like, you know, popes and preachers and deacons and bishops and all these, you know, elders and all that crap. You know, he was like, that's illusion. That's a false, you know, a false setup that absolutely can be used for evil, which in my opinion it has. Jesus also talked about and showed love for women, not to be used as objects or to be subservient to men and all that. But some of his disciples were like, but wait a minute, we like it like that. And we don't like the fact that you're favoring Mary Magdalene. So guess what? You know, when Jesus allegedly was crucified and gone, now all of a sudden when the books are written, the Bible, you know, Mary Magdalene, instead of Jesus's most favored student and love, she is portrayed as a whore. Oh, she was a prostitute that, you know, Jesus had to save. You know, he had to save a hoe, basically. And so that, you know, it's supposed to tarnish her divinity and make her appear less than the other disciples. But if you read Gnostic Christianity, which is the first Christianity and the true Christianity, you will see that all that is, all this about, you know, women being portrayed as whores and they're not good unless they're, you know, mothers and virgins, and, you know, then they're harlots and Jezebels and prostitutes, and all that is man-made illusion that Jesus knew was going to happen. He knew that he was going to be betrayed. He knew that. And so, but here comes the story, and this is all dealing with the Armageddon. I'm still on point. So then there's this fake story about, you know, where here comes the Bible, which of course, as we all know, if you read the history, that was, what was that guy's name? I can't think of his name. He was the emperor. What was his name? I keep wanting to say Nicodemus. I know it's not his name, but Constantine. Constantine created the Council of Nicaea, and I think it was either 340 or 370. And he just got, you know, and by that time, was about 300 and some odd years after Christ's death. By that time, you know, there was all types of Christianity going, all different flavors of Christianity, you know, kind of like there is now. But Constantine was smart. He was like, look, I know the Roman Empire is getting ready to fall apart, and I still want to stay in power and have some semblance or some structure of the Holy Roman Empire. So you know what? I'm going to do it through this new sect or this new organization of Christianity. But I'm only so I as emperor, I'm going to call together all the people studying Christianity who agree or who can contribute to my vision of what Christianity should be versus what the truth of Christianity is, and all the people who are basically, talking about the true Christianity and the oldest Christianity, the closest to what Jesus taught, they're not invited to the party. They're not invited. So he put together, he invited those people he wanted. They created some document that the Bible's based on. And then Constantine made it like, well, anybody who speaks against this and against this concept of Christianity I created, and anybody who talks about the original Christianity or any other form of Christianity, that's heresy and blasphemy, and they're going to be killed. So a lot of people were like, well, I don't want to be killed, and so they were quiet, kept everything on the low. And then of course Constantine was able to create the vision of Christianity he wanted, which now, instead of the Holy Roman Empire, we got the Roman Catholic Church. And then, of course, from there, 50 million other sects of Christianity came about. Now, in one of the main concepts of this, I call it fake Christianity myself, is the concept of the original sin. The original sin, like we were born sinful, or, well, I can't do it on the phone because I'm looking at the phone, but, man is born sinful, and like you carry the sin with you, and we're just inherently sinful, so much so that, this vengeful and wrathful God had to, drown everybody on the earth with Noah's Ark. But then the sin came back, and then Jesus had to come and try to tell everybody the truth, and he was executed. Now, of course, if this story is true, I believe Jesus was executed because he was telling the truth. And I believe those that arranged for his execution were part of the groups of people who were directly connected to the demons and doing the demonic work. So this original sin. So the story goes that Jesus had to die for our sins. Okay, well, what good did that do? Because I don't see there being any less sin in the world. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing like more in different types, worse. So it's like, oh, people are so sinful, no matter what God throws at it, it won't stick. So now we got to have the Armageddon, the final revelation, and the final war between good and evil, and allegedly good wins. Well, let me tell you this. The Armageddon, as I said before, is based upon putting the energies of what we perceive as good and evil in balance. But here's the thing. If you go with what the Bible says, like, oh, people are originally evil, and this evil has to be dealt with, like you're evil, rather than, you know what, we're human. We're made of what the perception is good and evil, or good and bad. I don't know, even through history, of anyone that has made the cut of just being good. Now, we project, say, or at least for me, when I think of evil, I may think of Hitler, I may think of Jim Jones. I may think of the Ku Klux Klan, stuff like that. Now, Hitler thought that he was, the god or the gods, was it to T-E-U-T, I forget the name, it's T-E-U-T-I-C or something, but the ancient name for Germans. He thought that, those gods, Valhalla and whatever, that was the birthright. That was the holy grail for Germans to rule the world because they were the superior race, right? All based on good because the Jews were evil. See, there's that. And see, good had to win and overcome evil. Now, I don't know. Now, I think Zionism is evil, but I could never call Jews evil. And I can't even call Germans, I absolutely can't call Germans evil. But I think Hitler did an evil thing. Was there good in him? People who were suffering in Germany at the time bought into the quote unquote goodness of what he was doing. But then I don't know to what extent they knew until it was too late that he was, I don't know how educated they were in the quote unquote final plan of exterminating Jews. But they certainly, when Jews were being corralled up and put in the ghettos and, taken away in trains and stuff, I don't see too many Germans standing up and saying, that's not right. That's not humane. Now, is that evil? Or were they trying to do it? Were they trying to, believe in Hitler for the national good? These concepts, good and evil. Take Jim Jones. Jim Jones was a Christian preacher. Some say he worked for CIA, possibly. But he was a Christian preacher. And he, started out that way. And then he was for the underdog, for civil rights. Good things, right? Christian preacher, fighting for civil rights. And then, fighting for the elderly, all that. And then in the end, he ended up doing a bunch of drugs, making a lot of people in his churches, making their lives miserable, taking a bunch of their money through manipulation. And yes, I did go to his church when I think I was 11 or 12. I did. I actually met him. And when I met him, his followers insisted that take a seat. And I'm looking for a chair. No, sit on his lap. Sit on his lap. So I kind of perched on his knee. And from that, I could just see all this white powder all up in here. And I'm just like, and he was just like, MF this and the N word that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I was there on a night when he was, what did he call it? Oh my God, I can't think of what he called it. But there was a code word for drinking this is probably where it came from, drinking the Kool-Aid. Is that purple Kool-Aid. They would have those big canteens and they would make this purple Kool-Aid. I forget the code word they used to use for the test because it was a drill. And when he gave the drill, everybody had to drink that Kool-Aid. But I didn't know they were going to lace it with cyanide and kill everybody. But I did see all the buses in the back of his church that were used to take people to the airport to fly out to Guyana. But he did that all because he was like, the Armageddon is here, and the government is the evil. See, we're good, we're for God and Christ, and the government is evil, and they're the devil. And so this, we're gonna relate it to the Bible, is the fight between good and evil. Nobody talks about balancing, because see, balancing what the extremes of good and evil is what is human. We're human. We're not perfect. We're not all good, and we're not all bad. We're in the middle road, the golden path. Okay? That's what's natural for humans. But when that gets out of balance, especially when somebody's saying, no, you're born with original sin, and you need all these hierarchical people, primarily white men, or men, or, telling you what to do, because you don't know, because you're originally sinful, and God has given these people the authority to dictate what you do and to judge you, to judge and be critical of you. So unless you do what they say is right, then you don't stand up to the smell test. You don't, you can't make it. You can't make it. You have to do so. I'll use the what is it? FDLS, the Mormons who have all the wives. Okay. Now, some men in there, through the Mormon Bible, that is ordained by God, because they're the good ones, and when the final days come, everybody else who's not them is going to go to hell, and perish in the Armageddon. They're saying, well, to get into heaven, the men have to have all these wives, and they could even be underage and have all these wives. And these women, their sexuality, their power has to be controlled by the men, because they're so evil. These women in general, girls and women, are so evil that men have to control their sexuality and have to tame it down. So you can, you have to wear, Little House on the Prairie dresses, and do your hair in Little House on the Prairie hairstyles, and you have to keep sweet, pray, and obey these men. And these men are doing whatever they want to these women sexually, having 50 million kids by them. And if another man in the group doesn't toe the line and behave in the way according to the prophet, and I'm thinking of Warren Jeffs at this time, well, then they get excommunicated, and everything they've given, businesses and money and their home and all these wives and kids, that goes back to Warren Jeffs. He gets to give it to whoever he favors, whoever serves him the best. You cannot tell me, in my own personal opinion, that some entity, creature, or entity in another dimension is not controlling that, in my opinion. Why? Because why is it that when Warren Jeffs was on the run, everything that he said that is not Christian, is not allowed, is sinful, gambling and, having all this, lustful fun and activities, he did that on the run with all these wives he took with him. See, to me, if a religion is good, then you can't hurt people it can't lend itself to hurting people or tearing somebody down or taking away somebody's power or manipulating them. Like the Ku Klux Klan, knights, Christian knights, they'll sit up there and burn a cross in your front yard, but it's the cross, it's Christian, right? But that cross is burnt for intimidation. To pretty much let you know, next step is we're going to be lynching somebody. That's Christian. That's good. See, but what I'm saying is that's an indication of the imbalance. Things have been in imbalance for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So this vibration is coming through now, is putting things back into balance. And guess what gets torn down? Everything that's not in balance. Every organization, every structure, whether it be political, educational, spiritual, if it does not resonate on the frequency that is happening right now, it's going to be destroyed. And that is what the Armageddon is going to destroy. So the Armageddon is nothing to be feared or have an anxiety about or be scared about or to be terrorized about. If anything, it's to be looked at with anticipation and joy, because it levels the playing field. It puts everything in divine balance. It administers divine justice. The only people who need to be concerned are the people who are heavily invested in this imbalance. So, what I would do and what I am doing is I am focusing my energy not on everything that's falling apart. I could care less. Matter of fact, I'm happy. I'm glad it's falling apart, because it doesn't need to be. Everything that falls apart, whether it be countries, like I say, systems, organizations, whatever, belief systems, beliefs, perceptions, let it fall apart. Let it go. Let it go. And see, people are so invested in, well, if this falls apart, then, it's like the Four Horsemen of the apocalypse. If XYZ falls apart, then we're going to go into famine, and we're going to, famine and pestilence and death and war and blah, blah. Yeah, well, yeah. You're seeing instances of that. And where you're seeing that are places where it needs to be, because old systems need to be torn down. Now, is it like, well, are you saying that the genocide that's happening in Gaza, that they deserve that? And that's supposed to, tear down Gaza? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, dying dogs fight harder. Look at who's perpetrating all of this. They're doing it for a reason, because they believe, getting excited. They believe that the harder they fight and the more ruthless they get and the more scary they get and the more controlling they get and the more manipulative they get and the more scared they can make people, then they're going to retain power. It's just not going to happen. All they're doing is dying dogs fight harder. They're feeling backed up to the wall, and so they're coming out fighting because they're losing. They are losing. And guess what? For them to lose and everything they're doing to actually fall apart, because everything must come into balance, divine balance. You don't necessarily have to do anything other than to search your own happiness, to look for your own happiness. Turn your face away from all this. Turn your attention, because your attention is power. Turn your attention away from what's going on in the news and what people are, oh my God, I can't believe Trump is doing this and he's doing that. And I can't believe what's happening in Gaza. And I can't believe the destruction of the earth and blah, 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 blah. Don't listen to all that. Now, if you want to join some organization or something that's fighting against it because that makes you feel good and it gives you joy, then absolutely do that. But don't feel that you have to. What the biggest, the most strongest force that you can provide toward the righting of things in this world is to seek your happiness, to focus on what you see as good, to control your thoughts and control your behaviors so that you don't cause harm and hardship and worry and fear and doubt and despair to yourself or to others. That's the best thing you can do. Don't give all this power. This is all an illusion. This is all falling apart. Let it go. Turn within. Seek your joy and your truth. And let it just be that. And we'll talk more on that next time. All right. So, if anything I said resonated, you like it, hit that like button, subscribe, share this. And until next time.